Now, let's learn about how fear of nuclear obliteration and the resulting massive public movement changed the government's atomic weapons views and policies. After all, it might have even saved us from an apocalypse.
Wait, what? The world could have ended?
Yes, believe it or not. Just recall the numerous nuclear crises covered in earlier videos, such as the Cuban Missile Crisis. Had scientists and the public not fought back against constant nuclear proliferation supported by the government, so-called brinkmanship could have very easily led to nuclear war.
So, where do we start?
First, I figured I would cover how scientists alone could not make a difference. It was only when millions of citizens took a stand that the government shifted their positions. For instance, those scientists we were talking about who started to protest the nuclear bomb, people like Leo Szilard, and even those who were in on the Manhattan Project from the beginning, like Robert Oppenheimer and Ralph Lapp. Do you know what happened to them?
I'm guessing their dreams of a nuclear-free world didn't work out?
They were silenced by federal officials through threats of being fired or prosecuted for treason. Some even had their scientific careers destroyed, like Lapp, while Oppenheimer lost his government security clearance, effectively removing him from his own project.
What? Why?
Both the fear of a continued war and the enormous negotiating power of nuclear weaponry helped the government justify these actions. A nationalistic spirit and war weariness among the population only helped the nuclear arms race. After all, we all know that eventually, nuclear proliferation led to many perpetual complex problems.
So, how did mass movements of people change all this?
Remember that nuclear freeze movement from earlier, the largest mass movement in United States history?
Of course, that's crazy.
It proved that large movements of people could even alter the government's approach to atomic weapons. The U.S. officials, seeing unprecedented numbers of its constituents up in arms, immediately began to implement measures to curb and reduce the number of nuclear weapons, as well as their potential to be used. Following 25 national unions joining freeze, 2 U.S. congressmen quickly introduced nuclear freeze resolutions into both houses of Congress. In fact, the concept of radical reductions in nuclear arsenals was adopted into the Democratic Party's national platform in 1984.
Wow, they really must have thought this was serious.
They did. In the 1970s, activists were able to meet with officials from the Carter administration to discuss possible nuclear reductions, all of which was possible due to the growing disarmament movement. The president followed suit by supporting the second round of strategic arms limitation talks and eliminating the neutron bomb project.
But I thought the largest anti-nuclear protest occurred in 1982. Why was that?
Good question. As it turns out, the beginning of the 1980s placed a lot of pro-nuclear government officials in power. While successful in some regards, their buildup of military power gave the disarmament activists more fuel for spreading the nuclear freeze sentiment among the general public. Specifically, Ronald Reagan's vocal support of nuclear weaponry and criticisms of détente worried many, who believed he would reject arms control agreements and risk nuclear war.
Wait, the president doesn't hold all the power to the nuclear arsenal, right? Wouldn't Congress be able to stop one person from launching United States nuclear weapons?
Actually, the president does not require congressional approval to launch any number of nuclear weapons. We surveyed 80 students from Princeton University, and over 30% did not realize this was the case. Definitely something to keep in mind when thinking about the presidency. And that's exactly why the nuclear disarmament movement reached its peak here. Regular citizens like you and me saw their elected representatives, the people in control of these weapons, seriously considering their use. In turn, they came together in unparalleled numbers to push for a nuclear-free world. In fact, between 70 and 85% of U.S. citizens supported this campaign in the early 1980s.
Did these ideas begin to emerge in popular culture during the time? I imagine it wasn't just protests and lobbying that got the word out.
You're completely right. Well done. In fact, films like The Atomic Cafe from 1982 helped spread the idea that nuclear conflicts could be devastating. In fact, the movie's creators tried to emphasize that government strategies to protect U.S. citizens from an attack were ridiculous and basically non-existent. Just check out this video clip showing how students were directed to act during a nuclear strike.
Paul and Patty know this. No matter where they go or what they do, they always try to remember what to do if the atom bomb explodes right then. It's a bomb. Duck and cover. Here's Tony going to his Cub Scout meeting. Tony knows the bomb can explode any time of the year, day or night. Duck and cover. Atta boy, Tony. That flash means act fast. Sundays, holidays, vacation time, we must be ready every day, all the time, to do the right thing if the atomic bomb explodes. Duck and cover. That's the first thing to do. Duck and cover. First, you duck. And then, you cover. You duck and cover tight. Duck and cover under the table. It's a bomb. Duck and cover. 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 Duck and cover yourself. Duck and cover. Duck and cover. Duck and cover.
And people believe that? It seems almost comical to watch now.
Initially, some did, but once the movement took hold throughout America, many people found it shocking that this was the official plan of defense. That helped lead those to reforms in the 1980s.
What followed after that? Did the movement disappear completely?
Well, eventually it began to lose some steam, but not without instituting major changes that would transform international politics forever. Both the Freeze Campaign and SANE merged in 1987, forming the largest international peace organization in United States history. They were able to lobby and encourage serious nuclear reductions with extreme success. The Bush administration and the Russians, through the START 1 treaty, lowered their number of strategic nuclear weapons to 6,000, effectively cutting the worldwide number of nukes in half.
That sounds like a huge victory for the disarmament movement. What could have caused this to subside?
Just as you might have expected, it was a fall in public participation. The same reason for the rise of the nuclear disarmament movement also led to its weakening as an effective socio-political force. Public opinion became unfocused, membership in SANE and Freeze declined, and younger people, who didn't live through the terrifying crises of the Cold War, didn't continue to push back like the previous generation.
But now that the Cold War has ended, doesn't that make sense? Why does the threat of nuclear weapons still really matter in modern day?
Whether you support nuclear weapons or oppose them, nuclear devices have the very real potential to destroy the Earth. Getting involved to make sure your views are heard is always the right choice. You'll see more about how nuclear weapons are one of the most important challenges the world faces today in our next video. Until then, stay safe out there.